Hi guys. So we're in the middle of the festival season and I realized that a lot of you kind of know what Columbina does, and you see Mustardseed on the street, but you don't actually know what happens in her show. So what she does is create fairy tales based on the dreams, hopes, and memories of the people in her audience. That's the poetical way. It's an improv comedy show in which she creates a fairy tale on the spot, sometimes funny, sometimes touching, based entirely on weird things that the audience yells at me. Some of the stories are quite fun, some of them are quite touching, and I thought it might be nice, A, so you get to hear them, and B, so I don't forget them totally, to share a few of them with you. And I can already tell you that the 7 stories that have already happened in the last few weekends, I'm probably not going to remember. And I did 4 this weekend, and I'm going to share one of them with you. Oh, we have a mouse sighting. You might see mouse. Pardon the clutter behind me, by the way. It's fair season. Every story begins with once upon a time there was a, and every story ends with and they all lived happily ever after. So, once upon a time, at 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, besides the Sammy sighting, hello Sammy, there was a little girl. And the little girl, more than anything in the world, loved basketball. And this basketball that she loved was her prized possession. She would play all the time. She would dribble, she would throw. She was so happy. It was just her and her ball. Well, one morning she woke up and discovered that her basketball was missing. This was a horrible thing. And she looked everywhere for it, and she couldn't find it, and she couldn't find it. So she pulled out her 20-sided die, and she rolled it, hoping to find where her basketball was, and she rolled a 20. Now, for some people, 20s are good, but sometimes they're critically bad. And when she heard when the dice rolled, she suddenly heard tss, and it was the sound of air coming out of her basketball. Well, she was terrified now, and she started looking everywhere to find the basketball, and she couldn't find it, and then you get to see a cat. Yeah, give me a moment. Okay, Sammy, no. Sammy, I love you, but this is not a good spot. Come here, you. Okay. Why do I feel like Jack the Whipper right now? My cat keeps getting in the way. I love you, I know. Okay, so she's terrified. She's searching everywhere for the basketball, and she hears this sound, and she goes hunting for the basketball, and she goes outside, and she's looking everywhere, and suddenly she sees up on a very tall pole, this tall pole, she sees her basketball. And she tries to climb the pole to go save her basketball. But it's covered in this slimy oil. And every time she touches it, she just keeps sliding down, and it's just covering everything. And she can't pick up the ball, and she can't climb the pole, and she's just skidding and sliding everywhere. Well, now she knows she's got to go find some other way to get her basketball. So she starts to slide down the street because she can't stand up. And she finally, going as quickly as she can because her basketball is losing air, finds herself in front of the sports utility store. And she goes up to the doors and she tries to reach the handle and she can't reach it. Well, she's skidded all the way over here from her home, and she is covered in dirt, and she is covered in this slimy oil, and she keeps trying to reach the handle, and nobody's going to help her. And they all walk by and like, nope. Can you help me? Nope. And they just walk right by her. So she's very upset, and she sits outside, and no one will help her, and she starts to try to get in, and finally she takes the power of, I think it was her foot, and she slams the door in. Remember, I wrote this story on the spot from when I'm writing this 2 days ago. So if you watched that show and you have any better recollections of things I've missed or changed, throw them in the comments. So she finally gets inside, and she's dragging herself along the way. And she gets underneath, and she sees this huge jousting pole, I believe is what they called it, which I translated as a lance. And they see this huge lance up on the highest wall, and she keeps trying to reach it, and she can't reach it because she keeps sliding down, and she keeps sliding down. And finally she just looks at it, and she's so close to what she needs, and she just starts crying and crying, and the tears just start rolling down her cheeks, and just sobbing. And as the tears start to roll down her face, they start to touch her skin where all that oil was, and as she's touching the oil, and the tears start to wash away all of the oil. And suddenly she can stand again. But she's a little girl, so she still can't reach that really high top pole. So she goes hunting for some help, and she finds a dragon. And she asks the dragon, would you help me? Would you help me get that large pole to get the things I need to save my friend the basketball, who's now losing air and dying as we speak? And the dragon looks at her and says, I will help you. But you have to give me the basketball if I save it. I have to give you the basketball. But the basketball is my friend. The basketball is my best friend. It's everything to me. So she thinks about it because she's so worried. If she doesn't get the dragon's help, she's never going to save her friend. And if she does get the dragon's help, she's going to lose her friend. But she agrees. She says, all right, if you will help me get everything that I need, then yes, I will give my basketball to you, because I would rather him be alive and happy than stay with me and make me happy. So the dragon takes her word, and they go to the jousting pole, and he reaches to the very top row, and he takes the pole down. And then he says, you're going to need an air pump too. And they walk to the other side of the store, and he brings her an air pump. She says, this is wonderful, thank you so much. Now I've got to go save my friend. And she starts to walk away, and he says, well, how are you going to pay for that? She was in such a rush to run out that morning, and then she got covered with all the slimy oil. She forgot to pick up money. She had no wallet, she had nothing on her. Well, now what's she going to do? Now she doesn't have the money to get what she needs. And the dragon says, well, you know, the store takes money for their purchases, but you can also pay in kindness. Well, maybe I'll try that, she says. And she walks up to the cash register, to the gentleman behind the register, and she says, I'd like to buy these things. I don't have any money on me, but I was told you accept kindness, and I'm hoping that what I explain is enough. My dear friend the basketball is dying now, and this is the only way I can save him, is to use these things, and yes, it'll save him, but then I've promised for all the help I've received that I will gift him to the dragon, because that way at least he'll be alive and happy. And the gentleman behind the counter says, that's a very kind thing you're doing, and yes, we accept kindness as payment. You may have these things. And while we're at it, he hands her a crystal orb, and she takes it. Now she has to carry everything, so she places the orb in her pocket, and she carries the lance, and she carries the pump, and she thanks them, and she leaves. She gets back, and way atop on that tall pole is her basketball, and it's losing more air and getting thinner and thinner, and she's so worried, but she puts down the pump, and she grabs the lance, and she uses it, and she knocks it off the pole. And then she takes the pump, and she connects the pump, and she starts to fill it with air. Well, she's so sad at this moment, because she knows she's saving this wonderful basketball, but the second she saves it, she's got to give him away. And she's so sad, and she's so heartbroken. So she keeps pumping, and she can't even look at the basketball. She's so sad, just pumping and pumping. And suddenly she turns around to look at the basketball, and it's as tall as her now. It's huge. And the dragon says, you can stop now. And she says, all right, well, I promised you that I would give you the basketball, so it's yours now. And the dragon says, thank you. And for that, I'm going to give you something too. And the dragon takes one talon and stabs the basketball when he stabs the basketball. Her friend, her wonderful basketball, it explodes. And suddenly, the basketball is no more, but right in the center where it was is a fairy floating in the air. And she turns to the dragon and she says, "Thank you, my friend. Thank you for saving me." And then she turns to the little girl. She says, "And you, little girl, you have been wonderful. You have protected me for the past 10 years, and we have played together, and I have enjoyed every moment I got to play with you. You're so sweet and so kind, and I thank you for everything. But before I go, let me give you something back, because I don't want you to be empty-handed. Pull that orb out of your pocket." She pulls the crystal orb out, just in awe that her basketball is no more, but this fairy is here. And she hands the orb to her, and the fairy takes the orb, and a 1, and a 2. That will make sense when you see the show. And a 1, and a 2, and as she touches it, it expands into a crystal basketball. And she hands it back to the little girl. And the little girl takes it. And she's afraid it's so fragile. And the fairy says, "No, you can play with it." She bounces it, and it comes right back up into her hand. She bounces it again, and it comes right back up into her hand. And every time she dribbles, it just right back up into her hand. And then she takes it, and she throws it in the hoop, and it goes right into the hoop. And she looks at the basketball, and she says, "It's a wonderful gift, but I like to play and know I'm doing it right. I don't want to be cheating. I don't want anyone to think that I'm not being honest, and if it just comes back to me like that, well, that doesn't seem fair." And the fairy says, "It's a magic basketball. If you are kind, if you are true, if you are loving and honest, it will always return to you. But if you fail in being honorable and being kind, if you ever are dishonest, when you dribble that ball, it will not return. When you throw it, it will not go in the hoop. So only by being honorable will you be able to play with it." And the little girl thanks the fairy. And the fairy and the dragon float off together in the sky, frolicking and happy to be together again. And the little girl and her new prize, loving, wonderful basketball that always lets her know when she's being honest and she's being kind. The two of them play together forever. The little girl never misses, always has the ball return, because she's always kind, and she's always generous, and she's always honest and loving. And together, the basketball and the little girl live happily ever after. That was Fractured Fairies Tales. See you at the festival, 11 o'clock at Gatehouse, 1 o'clock at Cottage Stage. I don't have a tagline.